I wrote to somebody else that you have a big IT team. You must have some amazing job descriptions. Could you share some of those? And that personal ask, we got more responses back and more documents into the text sections, models and samples than we'd ever had before. And we've been struggling with it for some years. So when you can do that, when you can do a personal ask through your system, then you're really encouraging people to feel connected and to feel like they belong.
Welcome to Sengii Talks, the show that brings great ideas and the people that have them together.
My name is Kate Bronstein and I'm with Sengii, and we have Noelle Green, who's also with Sengii. And thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd like to thank Moira Edwards for being here today. And Moira has over 25 years of experience in implementing software solutions for nonprofits. And prior to joining Ellipsis Partners, Moira was an associate vice president for the Association of American Medical Colleges and head of business development for the American Nurses Association. She does a lot of volunteer work with associations, and she's co-founder of the Association Women Technology Champions. So thank you very much, Moira, for joining us today. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Great, thank you, Kate. And I'm up front first, yes, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and force you out. Just want to check, yes, that is sharing well. Everybody can see it. Thumbs up from Kate. Is that looking good? Yes, excellent, excellent. Okay, so hello and welcome to today's session as part of the Sengii quarterly briefing on making community personal. So thank you for that welcome, Kate. I'm Moira Edwards, and so 25 years roughly working with associations, and I've run member services, including at one stage, I ran an online community when I was a staffer at an association, and it struggled. It was not the easy thing I thought it was going to be. And so now as a technology consultant, I want to make sure that we as associations are using our technology in the best way. So let us start with a poll. So perhaps as we think about engagement, what are some of the things that you have done to increase engagement? And Noelle, if you get a chance to go ahead and load that poll up so everybody can see it. Perfect. What have you done to increase engagement? Or perhaps if you're starting a new community, what are some of the things that are already on your mind? What we see people doing is putting resources up. I certainly did that when I was managing a community. We tap members to be champions, to post and respond and be active. We as staff often will put out announcements, we'll put out questions to try and get engagement going. I was advised to run competitions, to market the community in all of our other vehicles. We are more recently using community for mentor sign up and lots of other things. So I'm interested to hear what you all are using. I'm going to go ahead and check a few that I used myself before. Okay. And I'm going to submit that. And Noelle, how are the answers coming in?
I think almost everybody has answered so far.
Okay. Well, this is just interesting. Let's go ahead and post the results and just see what we all said. And we're seeing quite a number of people loading resources, member champions. Probably the biggest one is staff. So staff working to kind of provide that engine of activity. Thank you, Noelle, for that. So would love to hear from you in the chat where you're signing in from today. Kate tells me that most people are in the US time zone. She herself, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon in London, I think, for Kate. I'm in Falls Church, Virginia, just outside of the Washington, D.C. area, which means that I'm close to where all our lobbyists go. So it's either a good thing or a bad thing. But Susan is from one of my favorite places in the world, Portland, Oregon. And good to see everybody from all around the country. So for today, let's ask some other people what they think about our topic. And this is one of my favorite people, Maya Angelou, who said, and I'm going to read the quote, my apologies, but I am actually going to read the quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I really like that. And I use it a lot because I think that actually resonates a lot when we're talking about online community. So I'm now going to turn to somebody who's well known in the association world, Glenn Tecker. He runs a consulting company, because Glenn said, on an online community, actually, he said, engagement is not just an interaction or a transaction. Those are acts of participation, which I thought was really insightful. Engagement is actually a feeling. So if engagement is a feeling and people remember feelings, we have one other wise person to add to our thinking today, and that is Tom Morrison, also well known in the association world. He's an association CEO right now, but he's also a speaker at conferences. And Tom says engagement solves everything in an association. And I love that, because if you do have your members coming in and being really engaged, then they're going to tell you what they need. They're going to tell you how to move forward. So what that all ties together is that our goal today is to think about how we can impact how our members feel. And normally I have several learning objectives for a session, but today there's just this one for this small kind of, the small amount of time that we're spending together. Because that feeling is what you really want to generate in an online community. It's a community. You want people to experience it, to feel belonging, to feel safe, to feel informed, to feel connected. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to think about how to make community personal so that people have those positive feelings. And the reason we do this is because people join associations for many reasons. But one is because there are people there who understand what this job, this career, this profession is like. Right? This quote is from a board member with an association we worked with. And she said, working in this field is like learning French one day, Spanish the next, and Latin the day after. It's so fast-paced, I couldn't do it without the help I receive from the people I meet through this association. And this particular association, before they had an online community, these people who learned so much from each other would call up the executive director and say, do you know anyone else who has a similar issue? And she would think, and she would call a few of the other people in this profession in her area and connect the original caller with some others who might have that same issue. And then they launched an online community. And in all fairness, the first time they launched it, it didn't do so well. So they took it back down and they launched it again. And now that online community is one of their prime member benefits. Members consistently rate it as one of the top 2 benefits of membership. And it's incredibly active because, of course, what people are doing now is they are going on and they're getting this help in managing a fast-paced environment from their peers through the online community. So how do you get there? How might you get to this stage where your members are going, oh my gosh, this community is so critical to my success now, my professional success? So first we'll think about getting started. If you have a brand new community or you have brand new members coming in, how do you get them started? And I think one of the things that we have to do is to make it easy to post. I remember being invited to be one of the initial people into a brand new community. I can't even remember for what purpose. And I went in and I'm, yes, of course, I love communities and I'll do this. And there was nothing there. And I was going to write a post. And I really physically kind of contracted because I'm like, ooh, I don't know what's acceptable. I don't know what people post. I don't know how this will be received. I don't know if this is the right place. I don't know if this is the right question. I was beset by doubts. So one of the things that we can do is reduce the scariness of that empty space. This is where we're having perhaps our member champions, our own postings, get the ball rolling. But you definitely want to have it so that there's something there for them to pick up on the expectations. You introduce the ease of a one-word answer. Are you going to annual? Yes. Do you use this software? Yes or no. So the more that you can make it easy to respond by making it very clear that a one-word answer will do, perfect. People will start to chime in. They love to chime in on something happy, like anything that's a celebration of one of your members and a congratulations on your promotion. Those are ideal posts for an online community because we all feel the urge then to chime in and go, well done, well done. That's a fabulous move for you. And you'll get people to chime in. And I was talking with somebody recently about the book Hooked, where the social media companies use psychologists to help them make social media sticky, addictive even. And one of the things that they want you to do, they want us to do, all of us, that we want our members to do, is to put a little bit of ourselves in the community, because then we're invested. If we've added comments, posted pictures, in some ways put ourselves into this community, we now have a sense of being invested in the community. It's much harder to pull ourselves out. So getting them to even make those first steps will then start the ball rolling. Another great first thing to do is to put major content there. We're working with an association right now that posts their weekly newsletter only in their online community. So their weekly update, members now know that this is where they go to see what's happening to people, and to see what training is out there that they can sign up for. And it's consistent. It goes up there Monday morning at whatever time, but it's there every Monday. And members get it in an email update from the community. And so it comes into their inbox. But this is real content that actually isn't delivered through any other method. And it's a big draw. So putting content in your community that truly is not provided anywhere else, and especially, as we said, if it's people focused, where they can go on and see what's up with people and tag them and mention them and congratulate them, that's a huge draw. So I'm talking a lot. I would love to hear from you. As I said, it's great to crowdsource. You all are out there doing this every day. So what are you doing right now? Maybe you'll type in the chat if you have some ideas and to share. What are you doing right now to help your new members get started in the community? Or if you're thinking about or launching a community, what are you doing to get that rolling? Any ideas coming in? Anybody pondering or want to share an idea that they've been working on? We would love to hear from you. And Dallas says we're testing a mentor match program to connect members. See, that's wonderful. And that, again, will draw them in because that's where they sign up. And that will help them connect. We're going to talk in a little bit today about a mentoring cohort, which is also an interesting thing to do. Please keep, as you have ideas, putting them in the chat. If I don't get to read them out, other people today will get to read them, and it will be useful to us all. So you've gotten started, your members have come in, your community's starting to roll. How do you get this now moving? How do you get the momentum going? One of the things that we have found to be very powerful is to put control in the hands of your members. Particularly if they are leaders of committees or working groups or chapters, because they're the ones that really want to engage each other. It's their benefit. So the more that you can give them tools to reach out to members in their community so that they can target a message out, they can reach out to individuals, the more that you can let them know who is there. If there are reports that you can provide to them so they know who the current list of people are and when they joined, so they can target a message out. It's one thing for staff to send a welcome message. It's entirely something different for another member to reach out and say, this is our community and this is what we do here, and we're delighted to have you. It's very welcoming. And then you can capitalize on the power of the personal ask. So I was a chair of actually the ASAE Technology Council, and we were trying to get models and samples for ASAE. And it was so hard. And I knew there was lots of really good documents out there that people could share with the text section. So I went through actually the list of the council members and I wrote a personal email to each one. And the first part was personal. It was, dear Susan, you are so good at project management and we're trying to get some project management documents to load into our resource library. Is there anything that you might have? And then the rest was kind of general information about what we were doing and models and samples and how they could submit documents. And I copied and pasted that in, but I wrote to Susan and then I started a new email and I wrote to James and I said to James, you must get so many RFPs. Like, what are some of the best examples that you've written in response? Give us some things that we can use for models and samples. I wrote to somebody else that you have a big IT team. You must have some amazing job descriptions. Could you share some of those? And that personal ask, we got more responses back and more documents into the text sections, models and samples than we'd ever had before. And we've been struggling with it for some years. So when you can do that, when you can do a personal ask through your system, or with they can get the data from your system, then you're really encouraging people to feel connected and to feel like they belong. So another really interesting thing that you can do is to bring groups together. And of course, we all do in many ways, because we have discussion groups. We have the communities set up that are groups. And that's really wonderful for that asynchronous discussion, but you also want to foster real-time discussion. And probably during the pandemic, you started to do some of those. And certainly we've seen those standing happy hours or meetups emerge to be weekly, quarterly, whatever during the pandemic. And people loved them. And I'll say to you, try it yourself. There's a group out there called Fridays at 4. And I would have to Google that and kind of figure out, because I've been there. But Fridays at 4 is an association focused kind of a networking group. And they meet every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And that came from people meeting during the pandemic. I found the link here, let's post it. That came. And you can experience what it's like just to have this group of people that that come together. Now, maybe your online platform right now doesn't hold a meeting, but you could absolutely use it for advertising it, for registering for it, for posting discussions around it. So bringing groups together is important. We talked, Dallas was talking about a mentor match. The association that I mentioned at the beginning, the one where they used to call up the executive director and now they find the question, they ask questions online, that has a mentoring cohort group. So it's an online community. It's one of the communities set up, and I think they call it the mentoring group. And initially they encouraged anybody who's a new member to join it as a mentee, and they had a group of experienced members join it as mentors. But anyone could ask a question and anyone could post a response. It is one of their busiest groups because it's the place to ask stupid questions, right? Because if you go into a professional discussion group and you ask them, like if I go and ask something, if I have a really basic question about technology, I am unlikely to go and ask that in public because I really should know the answer. I much more want to go to either a place where it's seen as acceptable to ask that question because everybody knows that, you know, there's insights you don't have, or I can ask somebody directly. So having that kind of mentoring cohort group or a way to ask stupid questions is really useful. And the other thing that is a wonderful way to bring people together is what's the peer consulting, which you may have heard under other names, but it's this idea that you bring together three people of your members. And in 10 minutes, one of them explains a problem they're trying to solve, and the other two offer their thoughts and try and solve it. So the 2, 3, 4, 1 reminds me of the sequence of that. The 2 is that the first person has 2 minutes to introduce their problem and what they're struggling with. The 3 is that the first person then can respond to questions. So the 2 people who are solving the problem can ask questions of the first person. The 4 is when the first person then has to sit quietly and cannot talk or contribute, while the other 2 discuss the problem and think about solutions or what they might do. And then that final 1 minute is when that first person can come back and talk about what they heard and what was useful and what they learned. And so that's all of that then is in 10 minutes. And if you do this in a group of 3, then it's the next person's turn. And so in half an hour, people can bring to their peers a problem that's really bugging them and get some useful insight and useful ways of thinking about it that might help them move the needle. So that again is something that you can set up and schedule and promote as an event and register through your online community. Because what this does is this gives people the sense of the feeling of belonging, of being seen, of being a part of, like an active part of the group, which isn't always possible if we're kind of at a distance. So we've talked about getting started, we've talked about getting momentum, and now we're going to think about getting stronger. And this is a very powerful way to have members feel safe, is by allowing them to ask anonymous questions. Your platform may support asking anonymous questions, or you may put those questions through a facilitator. I've seen this used very well on Facebook. There's a group called the Nonprofit Happy Hour. And sometimes a moderator will come on and say, here's a question, and everybody can chime in and provide insight. And the person who posted it, this may expose them in their role or may expose kind of details. If they posted it themselves, that could be very problematic for them. But having it posted anonymously allows them to get a range of feedback. So that's a bit of an advanced way of bringing people and bringing some energy to your community, but it truly lets people feel safe in asking very awkward questions. I'm going to talk a bit about I'm going to do it now because I'm going to talk about the antithesis of feeling safe is not feeling safe or feeling exposed or threatened or that you're going to be slapped down. Because I've been in online communities where I've posted something and then somebody has come along and totally slapped me down. And by the response indicated that I was either acting in bad faith or just didn't know enough and hadn't researched the question enough, or and left me feeling just at best stupid and at first appalled that they had thought I was acting in bad faith. And so you want to avoid that, because if you want your community to thrive, it has to be a place of trust. People need to feel trust that they can post and will be accepted, and that what they post will be treated with civility at the very least. So you have to enforce consequences. And so because you need that place of trust, And one time I was on an ASA committee around etiquette in the online community. And I remember talking with some of the people who were very, very brusque, and actually they didn't realize, they thought they were doing the community a service, because when somebody posted a question and they challenged it, they were getting them to think it through themselves. And when I said, well, no, you're slapping them down. That was a brand new person. That's a young person. They will never post again because you've made them feel stupid. And that doesn't foster trust. So what ASAE did at the time was they actually enforced the rules. And I think for me, and if it's you and your online community and you're trying to figure out, like, you want to embrace the mavericks. There are people out there who say very amazing, worthy things, who are not maybe kind of just within the lane, right? They kind of wander all over the place, but you want to hear them. So you want to embrace the maverick. But I have always loved in management the rule of 3. Right? So this is me managing people. If somebody comes late to work, it can happen to anyone. So the first time could happen to anyone. If they come late to work a second time, it's a coincidence, right? It still could happen to anyone. If they come late to work a third time, that's a pattern. And now you've something that you can reference when talking with them. And I think that rule of 3 applies in many situations, and particularly I like it in online communities, because you don't want to come the heavy on your members. But if you have a terms and conditions, which of course you do, and you've kind of explained how you want people to act, you may want to think about the rule of 3 for somebody who's beginning to go over the line, and then you can enforce the consequences. You might even do it more often. I would be interested in hearing in the chat of people who are enforcing consequences and how that's going. So, and while your fingers are in the chat, would love to hear from you. What is your greatest challenge right now in getting your community off the ground? And what's your greatest success? Like, what's working well for you? We would love to hear you ponder that a bit, and then perhaps share that in the chat with others here today. And if you do that, I'll get a chance to read it out. And if not, one of my co-hosts can read it out. So we're going to keep the chat going through. I'm going to meander a little bit more, but again, anything that you share would be of great use. Oh, I'm going to promote somebody in whom I have no, there is no commercial interest here. I just think this woman is amazing. Her name is Amanda Kaiser, and her blog is called Smooth the Path. And she thinks a lot about things like this. And one of her recent blogs in May was Prime Members for Participation. So if you want to have some ongoing reading about how you can bring people in and how you can have members really feel embedded in your organization, I will just say Amanda is great. Oh, and I'm seeing some wonderful stuff coming up in the chat. Members committing to another platform when they prefer more well-known platforms. Dallas, that is a problem. There's always this idea of, meet them where they are. And if they're already on Twitter, then you need to be on Twitter. Of course, the operative word here is that this is a private community. So I don't know about you, but I have seen some very strange conversations on Twitter because anybody can see, and even with the rules around who can respond, Twitter and Facebook are still some very strange places. Whereas at least on your own online community, you're keeping all those vocal mavericks close, and you have control. So that privacy, I think, is such a huge power when encouraging them to come to your platform. And Susan saying we're just switching to Sengii, but our old community was almost 100% technical assistance among members. And Susan, I'm interested in whether that is a challenge or a success, because if members are helping members, that feels to me like that's a great success. But if you want them to be doing more, if you feel that there's more that they can be doing, then that could be a challenge. So if you get a chance to type in about whether that's a challenge or success, that'd be great. Dallas is saying this is an expressed barrier to member activity in our networking platform. Yes, the fact that they're somewhere else. I will say people are getting out of Facebook. They're getting like off of different platforms. And so sometimes I always think that as associations, we have a huge advantage over commercial companies in many ways, but in particular in that our members have the ability to control us, right, as commercial companies. So like if I am Facebook, there's very little I can do to tell Facebook what to do. But if you're members on your community and seeing a problem, they absolutely have ways to get in contact with you, with your executive director, with your president, and make known what they think. So your members have great power. That's another thing. You may not want to tell them they have that much power, but it's a great thing to allude to, again, by talking about how this is private and for us, and that, this is our community. And Susan says she's not sure whether this is a challenge or a benefit. She says all of our happy people posts have been in LinkedIn where engagement is good. We hadn't considered putting member news and accomplishments in our online community, maybe because it has seemed like such a technical space. That's really interesting. And, and absolutely, like other associations are sitting there going, oh my gosh, we have to have like an Ask the Expert community. Like, wouldn't that be amazing, where I have these technical questions and I have people primed to be experts to answer them. So people are looking at your thought, your experience, Susan, and thinking, we need to do that. And now you're looking at, oh, I could have a who's on the move. I always think it's a pity ASE has that in a newsletter, like a who's on the move community, and people put in and post who's gotten promoted and who's moving to a new company. People loved that kind of spotlight, because when they get their next job, they then get to be kind of visible that way. So in our time together, and how are we doing on time? We're doing okay, actually. So we talked about, in this moment, we're talking about feeling. There's lots of other things to think about in an online community. There's content, administration, there's return on investment. There's lots of ways that we can think about online community, but today we really focused on how your members feel and how you can help them feel safe, connected, informed, belonging, and not threatened, exposed, uncertain, right? And we're going to end on a little hobby horse of mine. So if you hear a neighing in the background, that's my hobby horse, which is the difference between personalized and personal. So we do a great job in our associations of working to personalize our content. Maybe we're using marketing automation to send people, or even artificial intelligence to send people newsletters and content that reflects their interests. Maybe we have our bookstore set up to say, if you liked this, you could also like that, right? So we think about personalizing our messaging, our content. But the thing about personalization is that it inherently means that we are thinking about a big group of members out there. And for national organizations, those are big groups of members, like almost a faceless mass out there. And what we're trying to do is give them something that resonates with them, tailors it in a bit. Personal, though, is really not about an onboarding email that goes out that kind of tries to tap into their interests. Personal is picking up the phone to talk to a new member. Personal is when that person is actually seen by you as the association, or by their other members in the association. And that is an experience. That's when we get the feeling, is when something is personal. So while I love personalization because technology can really help you with that, personal is a step further. And I think, as we've all experienced during the pandemic, it's kind of hard to replicate online, and it's probably one of our greatest challenges. So that is our session for today. Please feel free to contact me, for a question or even just a chat. This is such an interesting topic, and I'm putting my email in the chat because it's a long one. It's one of those ones that's hard to, like, how many L's and I's in ellipsis partners? Well, let me just write that. I'm putting that in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to continue the conversation. Kate, good to see you.
Thank you, Moira. That was wonderful. And I really liked the quotes at the beginning. And it is so much about how people feel when they're in the community. Like the examples that you told us about people saying things which they thought were helpful, but in fact were quite brusque and discouraged you from further participation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.